Hello,
Hello,
I'm Joanne,
and I'm Steve.
and together we're
Sod it, we're retired.
We've done it, we got it right.
Yeah, and today we're going to talk about our last full day of cruising, where we started off our day in Gometra, where we had actually anchored overnight as it was a sheltered bay. Well, let's just put it this way. I think the skipper had a mission today because he started somewhat early.
Yes.
Yes. We were still having breakfast. In fact, we just started having breakfast.
We got a little bit rough, didn't it?
It did. And that was fun with the breakfast
It was
show.
fun. There was things flying, everybody's trying to grab this thing.
Oops, catch that. Catch this.
It was good.
We had the bosun and the engineer making sure that things on the breakfast table were held down.
Think I'll take that away? You think a coffee pot? No.
Yeah. But it wasn't dangerously rough, as we've said before. This was a boat that's designed to roll, and boy did it roll. Unfortunately, when you're having breakfast, so does the contents of the table.
Some people did feel a bit seasick and had to take seasickness tablets, but we're very fortunate. That we haven't so far got it, and we've actually been on rougher seas on big ships, haven't we?
We definitely have.
You know, it really has been.
It wasn't really that rough, but it was a very interesting perspective. And as Joanne says, for some people they suffered a little bit.
Yeah.
We were lucky and we didn't. But that gave us a bit of an opportunity. So there weren't many people actually in the deck saloon as we were going round the coast.
Being ill.
They were all being ill in the bedrooms. But it meant that I could have a quick look at, there was some books underneath one of the tables, and they contained the history of the ship and the boat, and how that boat was converted into its now current form for cruising. But what I hadn't really appreciated was that just before the Majestic Line picked up the boat, its previous existence was as a film star in an independent movie called True North in 2006. And that was a story about a Scottish skipper who was transporting illegal migrants into the country on his trawler. And the trawler was the one that we were on, the Glen Tarsan, though in those days it was named something different.
And also it looked a little bit different, didn't it?
Yeah, it looked more trawlerish in those days rather than how it was now.
Yeah.
But that was interesting. It also had a full set of build pictures of how the ship had been built out over time. And it was literally a back to the skin job, putting on a new deck house, new cabins, etc. So a substantial amount of work in order to get it seaworthy and suitable for cruising. So our journey, which was a little bit on the rough side, we eventually got to a place called Glenmore Bay, where we dropped anchor, and then we went ashore. And on Glenmore Bay, on the jetty, which I think was Glenmore Jetty, we ended up looking over the side of the jetty and seeing jellyfish, really interesting against the seaweeds and against the backdrop. And they were lovely, weren't they?
They were
really
like,
attractive.
They were like lovely little angels. Beautiful.
Floating around, you know. And the next thing was a bit of a trek. So we knew that there was somewhere there was a castle, but I think we'd worked out beforehand that was a bit too far for us to travel to in the time that we had.
Because you only get,
a limited
an
time.
hour or 2 hours,
Yeah. So we moved up from the jetty road, and we then hit a minor road, but it had a few cars every now and again, and we walked down that road until we found a distillery, which was a reasonably new distillery.
Always a distillery.
Every island. I don't know if it's the crew wanting to get their spirits level up.
Every island has a distillery.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
No wonder there's so many different whiskies.
Yeah. Oh,
it's all in the water.
It is, and they were doing distillery tours.
Yeah.
And the next one was at midday, but this was quite a bit of time in the future, and we wouldn't have had time to do that. And it was only the two of us, so we continued on our way. Some of our fellow cruisers, a lot more of them turned up at the distillery from the second tender, and the result was that they did a special tour just for them, which they said was absolutely brilliant.
We were there at the wrong time.
Yeah, and they came back laden with bottles of whiskey, you know, as one does. Having had some taste as well. I think you had to pay for it, but they said the whiskey was really nice, and they decided to buy some. And then we walked round the corner, probably 5 or 10 minutes, and there was a visitors centre, a natural history centre on the left hand side of the road, and that had some really good tourist wares in it. It was probably the most reasonable visitor centre that we'd seen, and a lovely view over the loch, absolutely
and
superb.
Lovely wooden bowls, and we didn't buy one, and now we're regretting it. Well, I haven't got anywhere to put it anymore now.
Exactly, we just sort of gather stuff.
Too old, and we've got too much stuff now, so trying to downsize it all, but so I've got nowhere to put it, so we didn't.
Go minimalist, I say, go minimalist.
Yes, and we did try and go minimalist, but it didn't work, did it?
No, it didn't. When we'd been on the ship, I'd sort of spotted just beyond, there were some yellow buoys actually, and apparently those yellow buoys are for the salmon farms, so they put the salmon in them, and I'd spotted an area just past there that looked quite interesting.
We saw quite a few salmon farms, didn't we?
Yeah. What's wrong with
that? No, it's just that they said that they were all covered in, what was it?
Algae.
No, lice or something, wasn't it? And they're so like, you know, you get your salmon fillet in the supermarket, but they wash them all, so it's all off, you know, and I thought, ooh. It hasn't put me off salmon because I still like salmon, but yeah, it's not.
But anyway, when we've been on the ship, I'd sort of spotted just past this sort of salmon farm some orange kelp, and where we've been before, the orange kelp made a lovely contrast to the green and the blues of the loch.
He does love his arty photographs, don't he?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
So I was determined to get there. I probably underestimated a bit about how far it was going to be.
Yes,
because
he always does.
Because it was probably the same again from the visitor centre. But we got there and it was lovely, really lovely. Craggy, rocky, pebbly beach. Which was
just
largely
up your street, just what he loves.
Largely inaccessible because it was very boggy and very brambly, but I managed to find a little path through, and once on that beach you could go around and to your heart's content.
I didn't go on the beach bit, I stayed back because it was a bit boggy and whatnot.
And I sort of had about 10 minutes there before I suddenly realised that actually we largely come downhill, and that meant that going back up we'd have to largely go uphill, and therefore we were probably better to leave and make a quick return to the location, the jetty, where the tender was going to pick us up. So, you know, we moved on from there. But the road was lovely. It was a windy road, not very busy, an odd car here and now. And there was lovely woods on one side, and then on the other side you had the lochs which you could see through the various trees as you went along your way. So really nice. And then we went back to the tender and then back to the ship. Boat. Yeah, sorry about that. Back to the boat to then continue our journey. So, do you want to tell the story about the rest of the journey?
No, because I get confused with what order they come to. So was that when we saw the dolphins for the second time? Well, these were even better than the other lot that we saw. And it was raining again. It started raining again.
It does.
But nobody cared, and we just kept looking over. And on the video, it does go on for quite a long while with showing you the footage, but we just couldn't bear to take any of it out because it was just so fantastic.
They're really
to
graceful,
see them. I
aren't
mean,
they?
I don't know how they go so fast because that you don't really see their tails moving that much, and
No.
I just don't know how they go as fast as the boat was going. It was incredible, and again, they were looking up to see if you were looking.
And more importantly, these ones were jumping out the water.
Yes, wow,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, as you're here, we're all going, wow, It was amazing. It really was amazing, and one of the best things I've seen, really. It was just amazing.
That sort of made it worthwhile,
It
didn't
did.
it?
It did.
Because
It made up for not going in the cave,
Fingal's
Cave, and not going up for me to see the puffins. So.
But it was gorgeous. And then we went down the coast, and we were now virtually a mile or so, I would imagine, from Oban, where we dropped anchor overnight. The weather was lousy, and we were offered the opportunity to take the tender ashore, but there wasn't anything in that location.
There wasn't really anything there, and so you might as well stay on the boat and see all the lovely scenery. Did some people go?
No, nobody
went. So nobody went. Got off. It was lovely scenery and whatnot. So, and there wasn't anything to see if you got off. So.
And we had packing to
go to, I should say.
We had packing to do.
Yes, we did.
And we had been promised an engine tour.
Yes.
So
I didn't go on the engine tour.
No, you would have probably struggled. The way to the engine,
steep steps down,
was literally a ladder going straight down into the engine bay, and the engineer Alan gave a lovely talk on the engine.
It looked really interesting, and he was very passionate about it, wasn't he? Really?
Very passionate. And one of the things that he was saying is that the propeller is like a double propeller, where the screws turn slightly differently in order to turn the boat. So there's no such thing as a rudder on that boat. It's the way that the screws interact that causes the boat to change direction.
Blank face.
Yeah, but it was well worth it. First time I've actually had an engine tour. A couple of the people on the boat were farmers, and they were very much interested in the type of engine because of relating it to their tractors, etc. But no, really interesting conversation. And we stayed overnight, and the next morning we scarcely had started breakfast before we were on
our way.
On our way.
Do you think the skipper wanted to get rid of us?
Yeah, I think he probably did.
Get back, I think.
We were supposed to get in Oban around 11 o'clock, and I think it's pretty sure we got in around 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it was. Yes. I think he wanted to get rid. He'd had enough of us.
Yeah. Or not just us, probably.
No, everybody. He'd had enough of everybody.
Yeah. And we arrived back in Oban, and then we left the ship to continue with our journey home. But that will be another vlog.
Because we stopped off in Northumberland, didn't we?
Yes, and we'll go through that.
But that's for another video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But enjoy.
So if you like this film, click the like button and subscribe to all, because it really does help us, and we like to see how many people we can get. We haven't got very many followers, have we?
No.
We lose them and then we get them again. We don't know what's going on. Anyway.
Welcome on board. Enjoy the film. Well, for some reason the skipper was in quite a bit of haste this morning, and he started the boat moving before we'd actually finished the breakfast, which led to a rather entertaining breakfast as we tried to catch the various condiments and things as they rolled around the table. as the seas were a little bit rough. Buster Keaton would have loved this one. So today we're on our way to, and I think you pronounce it like this, Acharacle. And we didn't know a lot about it, apart from the fact that there was a visitor centre and natural history museum, and there was also a distillery and a beach that was supposedly quite well thought of in these parts. Apparently this is a wee village, as the Scottish guys would say, and has a population of about 200. That looks interesting over there. I think I'm going to walk there.
You don't have to pass a test.
He does terribly get my ticket, so eventually. As long as I'm watching.
Yeah.
Don't know if that makes it any better. Or if I take kelp, at least he can still do the tender landings with the chef.
Yeah.
You know, it's good.
And these jellyfish were just floating around by the pier where we landed. They looked absolutely superb, like little floating angels. Just outside the village of Glenmore was this distillery. Relatively new, but for an old brand, it was built in 2013, producing its first single malt whisky in 2021. We offered tours of the facility if you so wanted, and some of our party decided to take up that option. It seems that every place that we visit has a distillery. It must be something to do with the water. Continued down the road and hadn't gone far before we came across this natural history and visitors centre. I must say this was the best value visitor centre that we came across on the whole of our Scotland trip. It was selling tourist wares at very reasonable prices and also had a superb view. The place I was seeking to get to was further round. The thing that attracted me to going and exploring that area was the load of orange kelp that I could see in the water, and I thought there might be some incredible views from there. So anyway, I continued on my journey. So I followed the windy road as it led down towards my destination, and in about 10 or 15 minutes we arrived, and the views were worth it and they were incredible, but it was difficult to access the pebbly beach because there was a layer of bog and brambles in front of it. But I managed to find a path and got down onto the beach and explored a little bit further. as much as we would have liked to have gone further round, it became clear that actually we were going to run out of time and we probably needed to turn round and get back to Glenmore Bay and our meeting for the tender. And it was probably a good decision to leave then, as the journey was uphill along these windy roads. The road wasn't very busy and quite safe to walk down with the odd occasional car, but as you walked up the road, on one side you got glimpses of the loch framed in trees, and on the other side you got forests and bracken. It was a delightful walk. And soon we were at the narrow road that led down towards the Glenmore Jetty and Glenmore Bay. It was where we were due to meet the tender, and I was reasonably on time, but getting a little bit worried because I hadn't seen any of my fellow cruisers at this point. When we arrived at the jetty, it turned out that we were the first to arrive, so it gave me a little bit of an opportunity to explore this area, and shortly afterwards my fellow cruisers turned up. Though we didn't realise it at this time, this was to be our last port of call. I must say, Scotland is truly beautiful, with lovely craggy landscape and lovely greenery, and those lochs are absolutely tranquil and superb. But you can also get rough seas, as we'd experienced this morning. It's a real good contrast and a lovely place to visit. The second tender pickup complete, it was time to move on our way and move back towards Oban. The plan was that we were going to shelter in a little harbour around the corner from Oban itself overnight. That's more like the cruise ship that we normally cruise on, somewhat bigger than the one we're on today. We're now back on the Isle of Mull and heading in a northwesterly direction back towards Oban. approached a known sea colony where there was supposed to be 6 or 8 seals beyond the rocks, giving us a good opportunity to see them. However, when we got there, we couldn't see a single seal on the rock, but then we spotted one bobbing head off afar. And I actually managed to get the camera, point it in the direction and take a little bit of film. Then, just like the day before, we were suddenly surrounded by dolphins who went to the front of the bow and danced around. we dropped anchor for the night. We were given the opportunity to go ashore if we so wanted to, but the weather wasn't particularly good and there was nothing particularly special at the location that we were at, so everybody elected to stay on board. Anyway, Alan had promised us an engine tour and we were all eagerly awaiting that. Of course, we also had to pack as it was going to be the last night of the cruise. And down this hole is the engine room.
600 horsepower, which nowadays is 400 horsepower too much. The Glen Shield, for instance, has got 260 horsepower. And that's why she's very, very smoky when she starts. She's very,
That's
very
a
cold.
small engine. My biggest tractor's a 235. That's a tractor engine. It's a 6-cylinder engine. It's this long. But I must admit, it's totally different to any other tractors I've got.
So, the engine itself, if you were to try and insure this like your cars and stuff like that, you'd be trying to insure a 32.2 litre V8.
Wow.
It's quite a big engine.
You get grunt with that.
She's a Caterpillar D379, and the land equivalent is used in quarry machines, the quarry graders that make the roads, and they work in tandem, so you would only get them in doubles, one in the back, one at the front. Whereas this one, unfortunately, we've got to go to Aberdeen for parts for this one. The Caterpillar suppliers in Motherwell will not supply us because of the marine alterations, things like that. So
This is a very expensive engine.
very, very. 1976, priceless for what we are. No, there's no sensors, there's no computer chips or anything like that. The company wanted to have basic engines so that they didn't need to send technicians out if anything went wrong.
That costs money then, doesn't it?
It's simple though, it's simple.
That's it.
Exactly.
So, as you notice, unlike a car, the Glen Tarsan has no radiators for cooling, for keeping this cool, and it runs at 91 degrees as it is. So the way we control it is heat transfer. She draws in the seawater through these pipes here. This cylinder here, which is quite hot, is best described as a locomotive boiler. So you've got tubes running through it. 50% of them are full of salt water, and the other 50 are full of fresh water, which is kept in this other hot tank there. And what happens is the two pass, and that's what the water is flowing out over the side.
Yes.
It's
the warm water going over the
That's it.
side.
Yes.
Well, we have a pre-cooler for our milk. Our milk goes in and it goes through like a radiator. When it comes out at 22 degrees. Goes in at 37 here, and comes out only that far out of up and down, and comes out at 22.
This one it's roughly 15 to 14 degrees it comes in. So quite cold. And then back out at 91.
Yeah.
And it's the same for the gearbox, but it runs out the other side there. So Tarsan in this fleet is also known as the fuel tanker because we carry the most red diesel.
So we wanted to know whether it was red or
Red
white.
diesel,
Red diesel.
So
even today.
We still get red diesel.
Because of course anybody working in the combustion in the industry building houses, they can't go to red, they're all on white.
That's it. Yep. So
So
we
the
run in
agriculture.
red, and we carry 12 tons of red diesel, which can last us up to 3 weeks, and that's powering this for roughly 3 hours a day, the generator for 14 hours a day, and the heating for 24 hours a day. So it's quite a lot.
So you won't fill up now for another, or
We'll be filling up tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's due for a
But
fill.
we've not filled up for the last 3
know.
weeks.
Right.
That's-
That's okay. That's all right.
Well,
You can see the ribs of the boat and how well, very, very close they are, and how solid the timber construction is. That's one of the last exposed areas of the boat there. This is our battery bank for overnight. There's 8 batteries in there, £300 each, and I've got to maintain them. Very, very expensive, very heavy as well. So what happens when we shut down the generator, the Victrons will turn off. The Victrons spend all day charging up these batteries, and then the inverter system kicks in, supplying the lights and the fridges and things like that, and also for the computers in the wheelhouse, for the anchor alarms.
Little cubby hole is the engineer's workbench and workspace. next morning the skipper had raised the anchor early and we were already on our route to get back to Oban when we actually had breakfast. And it was a really short distance to do this return leg, and we were very soon back in Oban. On arrival at Oban, it was time to depart the Glen Tarsan, and as we left the ship, we had some very mixed views. On one hand, as you've heard in our initial vlog, the Glen Tarsan had not lived up in any way, shape or form to the quality of food that was suggested by the social media posts and indeed by the literature provided by the Majestic Line. On the other hand, the scenery had been breathtaking and awe-inspiring, and we had really enjoyed the company of our fellow cruisers.